You'll remember in our last video we talked about note values and how the notes were related. For example, the two half notes equal in value to a whole note. And that's going to become very important as we look at our time signatures. And we're going to look at time signatures right now. You'll see right here two staves, and this will be the treble, and this will be the bass. And if you look at any type of music, you'll see at the beginning of the song the time signature. And the time signature is two numbers, one on top of the other. And that stays consistent throughout the entire song unless there's another time signature given. If you see it at the beginning, you really don't have to, it's not going to change unless they write another time signature later on in the song. Most songs don't do that. They just pick one time signature and they stick with it, and that stays static throughout the entire piece. Not always, but typically in a hymnal they do. They don't change very often, some, but not many. Well, they are comprised of two different numbers. There's always a top number and a bottom number. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different, but they both teach us different things about the piece. And so we'll talk about the two different numbers. First, we'll talk about the bottom number. The purpose of the bottom number is to tell us how many beats a whole note receives. So if your bottom number is a 4, then your whole note will receive 4 beats. If your bottom number is an 8, then a whole note will receive 8 beats. And that's why we talk about those note values being so important, because then you can break it down and you'll say, well, a half note, if the whole note is worth 8, then a half note is worth 4, and a quarter note is worth 2, and an eighth note is worth 1. And you can break it down in your own mind that way and kind of understand it, that the bottom number tells us how many beats a whole note will receive. So that's what the bottom number teaches us. The top number is totally different, but it's just as necessary. The top number tells us how many beats are in each measure. So, suppose we have two measures represented here, and our song was a 4/4 timing. If our song was a 4/4 timing, our bottom note would tell us that the whole note receives 4 beats. And our top note would tell us that each measure can only contain and will contain absolutely 4 beats. Never more, never less. So you won't see one, well, this measure only has 2 beats, or this measure has 5.5 or 6 beats. If the top number is a 4, each measure will only have 4 beats. And if a whole note takes up 4, well, then you may see something like this. You'll see a whole note. And that's your entire measure. That fills your measure. You may see 2 half notes. And there you go. That fills your entire measure. You may see 4 quarter notes. 1, 2, we'll run out of space, 3, and 4. There's 4 quarter notes. 4 beats in this measure. Each quarter note receives 1 beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There your measure is full. That fills your measure. So the time signature helps us to understand, not so much the speed, but it helps us to understand how many beats are in each measure. Helps us to understand the relationship of note to note. So you could have, one whole note like we looked at, or 2 half notes, or you could have 4 quarter notes. Any different variety. There will be all different kinds of things that you see. So that would be, say, a 4/4 timing. A 3/4 would be similar, but each measure would only have 3 beats instead of 4. So you'll never see a whole note, because the whole note receives 4. You don't have space for 4 beats. You'll never see a whole note. You may see a half note and a quarter note. You'll never see 2 half notes, because that would equal 4 beats, and you only have 3 beats in the measure. But you will see a half note that equals 2 and a quarter note that equals 1, so there's your 3 beats. You may see 3 quarter notes, but it will always equal to whatever this top number is. It will never be less, it'll never be more. It can't be. So once you understand that the song, what the top number represents in whatever song you're going to lead, you know that each measure has that many beats. And this number typically will determine your beat pattern. Whether you're going to use a 6-beat pattern or a 3-beat or a 2-beat or a 4-beat pattern, this number will typically determine that. We'll talk about that later on down the road. But that typically will determine your beat pattern. Here's another strange one, a 6-8, and this happens a lot. I say it's strange just because when this bottom number is more than the top number, you'll never see a whole note. You know, a whole note in this situation would be worth 8 beats, and each measure only contains 6. So you'll never see a whole note. You may see 6 eighth notes. You may see 3 quarter notes, but you'll never see a whole note. You just won't see it in a 6-8. But the bottom, again, tells us how many beats does a whole note receive. In this situation, it would receive 8 beats. And the top note tells us exactly how many beats are in each measure. So you would have 6 beats in each measure in this song. And I hope that clarifies your time signature. Write these things down. Keep them with you. The bottom number tells you how many beats your whole note receives. The top number tells you how many beats are in each measure. So write those down, study them, memorize them. That will help you throughout the rest of your conducting life.